Greetings, beloved. Thank you for joining us today. Have you ever wondered why so many women are not equipped for marriage? It's because being a woman does not make you a bride, no more than being a woman makes you a mother. As with so many things in life, there's a process that leads us to our desired end. If your desired end is to be a bride according to biblical standards, then you have tuned in at the perfect time. Chapter 2 of the book of Titus tells us that the aged women should take the younger women through the process of becoming not just brides for a day, but brides for a lifetime. So stay tuned for more of Bridesmaid with me, your host, Renee Bolden. I think I shared the story. There's a couple that was engaged to be married. The woman is trying to, I'm about to get into the next one now, which is about bossiness. Okay, we're gonna go there. That's the next one. Expressions of love, because some women really think that them being bossy and telling a man what to do and how to do it and where to do it and all of that's their expression. I love you, so I don't fully know how it comes across in their mind, but I love you, so I have to do what's best for you. And what's best for you is my way. That's what's best for this situation. Our marriage is going to work out perfectly if you let me tell you everything to do and how to do it. Real life scenario. Man and a woman are engaged to be married. She's trying to tell him how to spend his money, where to spend his money. I want you to go move in an apartment to prove to me that you can pay a certain amount. All of this, it was a bunch of craziness. Well, when it was all said and done, their wedding was called off, and he ended up marrying somebody who was a stripper. So you take the woman who thinks she's all that in a bag of chips, and she can tell a man what to do, and she can plan out their whole life, and she's educated, and she's whatever she want to call herself, and she's trying to run this man. And then you take the one who didn't think enough of herself not to put herself on a strip pole, and then a man wants to marry her. Who do you think is going to be more submissive? Who do you think is going to be more supportive? Who do you think is going to be more grateful for him? The one that he married. She got the man. Oh, you want to marry me? I do. Now, what do you want me to do? She didn't have no plans whatsoever for their life. Just tell me. Having babies for him. She got the brand new house, got the brand new car. She got it all. Why? Just because she wasn't trying to be the man. She showed up as a woman. Yes, the stripper. She showed up as a woman, and guess what? She got the man. Not the little boy that the other woman was trying to make him. True story. And it's happening all the time, and women are thinking, oh, well, I'm educated. Let me school you. Sir, no, he's not going to be schooled. He might go along with that for just a little while. Maybe. He might go along with it for a little while, but he's not going to stay there. Why? Because no real man wants to be with another man. And that's so masculine for you to be trying to tell a man what to do, how to do it, when to do it, where to do it. And that is not the same. You all have heard Apostle Bolden talk about how he may ask me about, oh, what do you think about this? He's asking for a female perspective because he's not a female. He's not asking me to take that question and then plan out our life with it. What do you think about this? And then I just go on with a whole lifelong plan of how we can carry out everything. No, that's not what he's asking. Just give me, what do you see when you look at this situation? Or what do you see when you hear this? Whatever. I know what I see, but tell me, how does a woman think when this is set before her? So that's very, very different. Being involved in a conversation, having input in situations is very different from you just completely taking over. Two completely different things. And so we're talking about, the bossiness, and again, that was a situation where that was real. So the woman who was being bossy lost the man. She didn't get the husband. Still don't have one. And sometimes, we've kind of heard this said, how you chose this person over me? What? Yeah, because that person was being supportive. They were being submissive. They were being respectful. They were being a helpmeet. They were being feminine. They made room for a man to be present. And that's important for us to know that if we believe that God designed us a certain way, if we believe that, then we know that the same way women admire and they adore an authoritative man who knows who he is, that man also knows who he is. He knows what he's supposed to be in the marriage. He knows that. And he doesn't have to be 30 and 40 years old before he figures it out. People in middle school and high school know that, right? They understand, oh, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be dragging me around like a puppy dog and I'm not and being my puppet master. Hint, Apostle Bolden shared the story about elementary school, they're at the water fountain, and the girl's like, you want to be my boyfriend? Sure, you better. Okay, so okay, all right, now this is no longer fun. This is no longer interesting, it's no longer attractive. And that's the way it comes across at every level with the man. They know the dynamic and what it's supposed to look like. And so when we're being bossy and doing these things, it's a turnoff. It's a great turnoff to a man. So we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit talking about this bossiness because I also had a conversation with Tia, and there were some things that came out in the conversation that I really wanted her to share. So the first thing I'm going to do is, and it's kind of geared toward this, the whole, it's going to lead up to this, the bossiness and what we're talking about right now. And the first thing I'm going to do, if she will allow me, I'm going to give a little bit of a summary of an overview because just for the sake of time, kind of summarize her family dynamic as she shared it with me, and I will ask her a question after that for her to just share. So I know when we spoke, you mentioned a grandmother. I don't remember you mentioning a grandfather. Were they divorced or deceased or? Okay, so the grandfather wasn't there, but she did mention her grandmother. So there's one generation right there. You see, grandmother had played, but no grandfather. So there's no male figure there, which meant. Do you remember at what age he may have? What age you were? Do you ever remember? Okay, so you weren't even born. So she never had the privilege of even seeing her grandmother and grandfather interact. So then you have her mother and father. She has a brother who's 16. He was 16 years old when she was born. So there's a huge gap there, even though he's a male. So he was somewhat of a figure there. So, her mother and father had her. Your mother was 42 years old. So it was almost like an only child kind of dynamic with that. You also mentioned, and I'm going to go back to your mother and father, but you mentioned an auntie and an uncle who you frequently saw, and the dynamic of what you could tell in their relationship was that she pretty much runs him. So there you have grandmother and grandfather, no interaction. You have an auntie and an uncle, where the auntie is kind of running the husband, and then you have the mother and father, where it was pretty much the same dynamic, a little bit of a twist where mom, if I'm paraphrasing this properly, used a lot of emotional witchcraft to control her husband. There was no respect for authority between mom and dad. There was very, very little affection. I think in our conversation you said you can distinctly remember one time that you saw any kind of affection between them, where there was actually a hug and a kiss, or just a kiss or something like that. And just an ongoing, so your mom and dad divorced at when you were around 9 or 10, 9 years old. Okay, so 9 years of seeing mom and dad together was pretty much um, mom has an issue with authority. Mom has no respect for men. Mom is actively saying things, derogatory things that's being planted in her to make her see, I say her dad, but really to see men in a bad light. He just happened to be the person there. And so, of course, there were arguments, and this is something that I really want to point out about what she shared about the arguments between her mom and dad. Mom was doing things that she knew her husband well enough to know that he didn't approve of XYZ, did not like XYZ, whatever it may have been. A lot of it, as I understand it, just had to do with her just naturally being a wife, not living out Titus 2. And whether a man knows about Titus 2 or not, he's expecting it. It's built in him to expect Titus 2 from his wife. That's what he's looking for. So that created a lot of arguments between the two of them. One of the things that Tia shared with me was that oftentimes what she saw as a child play out, and I want you all to really, really pay attention to this. Dad is frustrated and he's getting on to mom, and mom just sits down and cries. That painted a picture that big bad dad and poor mommy, he's just mistreating her. Well, of course, as a child, she's not able to, obviously, she doesn't know the word. She doesn't know the true dynamic of what a husband and wife relationship is supposed to be. She doesn't really know what her mom is supposed to be doing, that her dad could be frustrated. She can't see the full picture, in other words. As a child, is only so much her little brain can take in and comprehend. So all she sees is daddy's fussing, mommy's crying. Okay, I'm taking mommy's side. Period. Daddy, you're wrong because she's crying, and I don't like the fact that she's crying. This is why it's important what Apostle Bolden shared. I know I've shared it. This is why it's important that parents don't pull their children into their emotional drama. Children do not have the capacity to comprehend what's going on. They don't have the capacity to say, I'm not going to take sides. I don't really know what's going on. I'm going to look into what's the bigger picture here. They don't have the capacity. They're not mature enough to do that. So don't put them in a position to make them choose, because why? A female who's emotional and is immature and can't see the big picture, of course she's going to go inside with the emotional woman who's crying. You look like you're a victim. Why else would you be crying? Surely you're not manipulating this situation. You're not trying to make me feel sorry for you. You really are a victim in this. Except she wasn't. But again, children don't have the capacity to make that judgment. So we as parents, we need to keep our emotions in check. We need to be mature. We need to be adults, and we need to make the right decisions to not put our children in a position to shoulder the burden of our emotions. We need to deal with life as adults and let them be children, so that they're not growing up with these skewed perceptions about men and women and husbands and wives and what men are. So obviously those things affected her, right? No doubt. Those things affected her. Then when They got the divorce, as I understand it. So mom was already not really living out Titus 2, and she just turned it all the way up. Titus 2 don't could never exist in this atmosphere. We're just living it up, you know. So with that came I guess a lack of teaching and lack of preparation for her to become a wife. And so of course so one of the things this is going to be my first question to you, Tia, for you to kind of talk about from that perspective about how your family dynamic affected you in terms of having an issue with male authority, having an issue with men. As you look back over your life now that you're learning about the truth, now that you're learning how to be feminine, how to be a godly woman, how to be married, like from a scriptural standpoint, the question is, how do you see, um, or where can you, I guess, talk about how those things affected you in your interactions, your perceptions, even with, I know you talked about some things about what your attitude was towards your dad. If you can just kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so since my mom was pretty much just bad mouthing my father all the time, I thought that he was like just an idiot. Like I thought that he was just dumb. And so I guess that like played a role in how I see men overall. Like they're just dumb, whatever. Like woman's got to do everything and stuff. And it just made it harder for me to accept male authority. Like I didn't even think like male authority was a thing. Like I thought like when you got married, maybe it's just like 50-50. And it just made it like extremely, extremely hard to just accept certain like tones and the way that a man says something. As far as just simple wifely duties like cooking and cleaning. The cleaning part, since I didn't like want to be like my mother, I made sure I cleaned really good, but like the cooking thing, I had to start from scratch. Teaching myself how to cook because in college it was pretty much just frozen dinners, and then like when I met my husband, I started cooking more and stuff like that. But when I first started out, like one of the first times we were together, he was hungry and I was like, "Do you want something to eat?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds good." And he always tells a story. I went in the fridge and I got like this sweet potato and I just poked some holes in it, put it in the microwave. I think with just like a little butter, and I gave it to him and he was like, "What is this?" I think that was like our first experience when I was cooking for him. But over time, I've gotten better and things like that. But um, just as far as like male authority, and like treating my husband and stuff, when we first together, I was like, "What is this? Like, who are you talking to?" Like, oh no, this is not gonna do. And it creates this that fight, inside, like this fight, like gotta stick up for myself. I can't let a man tell me what to do. Like I'm not gonna be like my mom and just sit there in the chair and just cry. Like I gotta do something. So yeah, that's pretty much what it like developed in me. That strong man, masculine fight spirit.
Thank you. Thank you. And could you talk a little bit about how your dad, the discipline, uh, or the lack thereof, that some of those scenarios that you shared with me, about the discipline, and this also, because it's kind of a dual dynamic there. You had the one piece where you're like, oh, I'm not gonna sit and cry like my mom, but then there's another portion to how your dad interacted with you that also, if you can talk about the difference between that, his tone and your husband's tone, and why your husband's tone when he's talking to you seems so magnified, I guess.
Um, I can count on probably one hand all the times I've gotten in trouble as a child. I've never been spanked. I've never been hit, pinched, never been grounded, never been nothing. And so I remember like one time my dad he gave me like some vegetable soup, and there was vegetables in it, and I didn't want to eat the vegetables in it. And he's like, "Honey, you need to eat your vegetables." And I was like, and I like maybe started crying or something, and he didn't raise his voice really, but I thought that that was the raising his voice at me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And there was another time, I think I said the F word or something, and my mom was like, "I'm gonna tell your father," and I was like, "Go ahead." And so she told him, and me and my dad were in the backyard holding hands, and he was like, "Honey, I heard that you said a bad word," and I was like, "Let's just forget about that, Daddy. I love you." And he was like, "I love you too, honey." And then it was just swept right under the rug. I think one time I crossed the street by myself, and we lived on a busy road, and I got in trouble. Um, that didn't come out to anything. And then there's other time I used to like to get into my mom's makeup, and I would put on her lipstick. And I came down the stairs, and my mom's like, "Why are you in my lipstick? What are you doing?" And my dad was like, "But she put it on so perfectly. Like she didn't. It was right in the lines. Like it looks good though." And I think I got lipstick on my shirt on my birthday, and it was like a white shirt. And my mom's like, "What are you doing? You're getting your shirt all ruined." And my dad's like, "Oh, like she's fine. Like let her be." And so now with my husband, if it's like just any kind of like demanding tone, just being an authority, something so simple like go do this, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's this big things. I was never used to that. It's I was so used to like the manipulation, manipulating my dad, who I knew he would never hurt me or hit me or anything like that. And yeah, it's so like exacerbated in marriage.
So let me ask you this question. Did the interaction with you and your dad and how you could kind of manipulate him, get his mind off of whatever you did wrong, like even exaggerate this idea that just him asking you about what you did wrong, was going to create this hyper emotional response from you. Did that create any type of fear or hesitation when it came to you marrying your husband and hearing him having a different tone? And I mean, just concerning, well, how are you gonna treat our children? In other words, like you never got spanked, but maybe his tone, your husband's tone, may have said to you, well, he might want to spank our children. Like, did that create any kind of hurdle that you had to get over because of the differences between your dad and your husband?
I think when it came to spanking children, like I didn't accept it at first. Like I was like, I would never spank my children. And then I was talking to one of my past friends, and she said something about spare the rod, like it's in the Bible. And I was like, "What?" And she showed me in the Bible where it was, and I was like, I was like, "Oh wow, okay." Like and then I kind of accepted it from there.
Mm.
And I think like with my stepchildren too, and seeing him discipline them, that really helped me because I think he does like a fantastic job at discipline, like just like not doing it out of like anger or anything, but like like disciplining them and like setting them down and like talking to them like why he did that, and like
Mm.
yeah, stuff like that. So yeah, I grew from the I would never spank my child.
Okay, thank you so much. And I just want to kind of insert that I think it's important that we be able to really recognize the differences in how we may have grown up in a home, because obviously when you hear her just describe a little bit about the interaction with, she and her father versus just with the tone, and how her husband just having an authoritative tone, not yelling or anything, just having an authoritative tone, how that created an issue. I think it's really important that we be able to, number one, recognize the differences between something that we may have seen or experienced growing up versus what we might be going into in marriage, and know the biblical scriptural difference. That's what's important. It's not just, oh, well, my dad didn't talk to me this way, but so why are you talking to me in such a manly tone and such an authoritative tone? You're not my father, and he didn't talk to. It's not about that natural part. It's Is this being done in a way that God calls for? What I experienced at home, was that scriptural versus what I'm experiencing in my marriage? Is it scriptural? And so we can't stop the comparison, so to speak, at just how we feel. Well, I feel better if you just only smile with me and don't correct me and don't address me, because that's a part of what was going on. She was avoiding correction. Oh, daddy, I love you. Let's not worry about that. Okay, well, we just won't talk about it. Whatever it is you're doing wrong, we just won't talk about it. So obviously, no doubt that affected her going into marriage, because if your husbands have to say, hey, what you're doing is not according to the word, then that means you have to be corrected. And that's going to be hard. And no doubt that's been a difficult thing. She shared that. It's like, wait a minute, all this correction. Well, we have to be able to, as wives, say, okay, yes, this is what happened in my home growing up, but this isn't the way God wanted it to happen. So the way I get on one accord with my husband is recognizing that, parents did things the way they did it, whatever they thought was best, but it still wasn't God's way. And so we're going to do this God's way. Um, so one other thing that I want to move her into talking about, and I really want you to be very descriptive about this particular high school boyfriend. Ray, I believe his name was. Okay. So, and we're still talking about bossiness, but I just kind of wanted to lay a little bit of a foundation that that kind of moved her into this dynamic that played out. Um, one of the things I want to kind of mention too, which is talking about her issue with male authority, her the way she looked at men and things like that, just the disdain that she had for men based on her experience. A part of this, and we're not going to talk a whole lot about this, but we kind of went through her probably life up through high school for sure, very in a very detailed manner. And one of the things that she shared was, I think, as early as elementary school, and I've heard this a lot over recent years, the past couple of decades. I've heard this quite a bit, where children at a young age, elementary school age, second, third grade, first grade, something like that, where they're kind of experimenting, touching each other, and they don't really know what they're doing, but the kingdom of darkness knows. That something, some people get hold. I think some of you have shared, you've gotten hold to maybe some pornography, or different things that have introduced certain things. And so that was something that we talked about a little bit about. Her and one of the best friends, I think the mom used to babysit her, and one of the best friends, and how they just kind of experimented, touching each other and things like that. Well, of course, that's something that, as a child, you do things, you don't really know why you're doing it. You just, okay, this is just something that we're doing, and okay, that's fine. The unfortunate part about that is that was a part of the setup for having an issue with male authority, because if God designed male and female to come together, it's meant for a female to experience that feeling for the first time from a man, not from another female. It doesn't, and again, at well, how old are you in second grade? 6, 7, 8 years old, they don't know what in the world. Okay, well, this is just fun. We're gonna play house or whatever. A lot of children did that and they experimented with it, but they didn't know what it was setting them up for later on. So a part of that is also that dynamic at play, where the kingdom of darkness has already introduced something else into her spirit that she has no idea. So that, along with what she sees going on between mom and daddy, what she don't see going on between grandmother and grandfather, what she sees going on between auntie and uncle, all of this is playing a part in how she is going to carry herself in a relationship and ultimately in marriage. So let me just say this. It is important. It is very, very important that we pay attention to our children, that we pay attention to when they may be acting a little differently. And I'll use this for an example. A few years back, there was a child, and she very, very close to her daddy, and she was sitting next to another little girl, and she put her arm around the little girl the way a husband would do a wife. I saw that and I was like, and I just thought, she is mimicking what she has seen her daddy do. So that has to be corrected. Okay, well, you can't put your arm around another little girl. You might admire daddy, but you can't act like daddy. These are the types of things that we have to be able to catch and know, okay, something's off with that. You don't, one of the biggest mistakes I think parents can make is to leave their children alone, closed off in a room, not checking on them, not anything. We have the baby monitor in Claire's room, and when her sister and brother comes by, of course, we can just watch everything they're doing, because the camera's there. And so one day I heard King and Zoe talking, and Zoe said, that's a camera. He was like, no, it's not. It's just like a intercom system. It's just something you can talk to. I said, no, it's a camera and we can see everything you do and we can hear you, just so you will know. So you don't get any ideas about trying to sneak and do anything, And so we have to be aware, not of the lack of innocence of children, because that's not what it is. We have to be aware of how the kingdom of darkness will exploit that innocence. They don't know, so we have to be watchful. We have to watch over them. The difference between having the door open and having the door closed. The difference between calling them to come do something for you every 20 minutes so they don't get comfortable being in the room by themselves for 2 hours, interrupting what it is they're doing so they know that you're there, just and I'm using that as an example, but I'm just saying we have to be watchful. We have to pay attention to the mannerisms of our children and know, okay, if something looks off, we don't need to brush it under the rug. We don't need to overlook it. We don't need to pretend it's not there. We need to deal with those things, and we need to teach them. I told you all this story a while back about when our son Joshua was 3. He was no older than 4. He may have been 3 years old. Definitely no older than 4 years old. And all of a sudden, I had this strong, strong urge. And I mean, it was a strong urge to where I couldn't rest. It was like something in me saying, talk to him about the differences between males and females and what's supposed to happen between males and females, but in a way that he understands. And I was thinking, he's so young. Like, wow, what? But it just kept coming to me, coming to me. And so finally, I sat down and I talked to him, and I just said, this is, whatever. I told him difference between male, boys, girls. Boys don't touch boys, girls don't touch girls, only boys, and all of this. And do you know, the next day, I want to say, it was either later that day or the next day, this little boy in the apartment complex that, they would play outside all the time. And, they were right in my line of view. I would only allow them to play where I could see them. Um, and so, they were out there playing with sticks under the tree or whatever. And when Joshua came inside, and this is just a practice of mine that I've always done. What did you all talk about? Well, what did he say? What were y'all doing? What kind of game were you playing? What did you call the game? What was he saying? If you allow children to talk, you'd be surprised at what you'll find out from them. And I don't mean questioning them as if somebody has done something wrong. I mean, just let them speak. And you will be surprised at what you find out what another child said or did. And he said he was trying to get me to be his boyfriend. And I told him, no, I can't do that. Boys don't do that. And so, of course, I reiterated. Of course, he knew that because we had just had the conversation. And that's what that little boy, the little boy was only 3. He could barely talk. You could barely even understand him. So he didn't know what he was saying or what he was doing. But I had that strong urge, talk to him and tell him the difference between boys and girls. Help him understand in a way that he will understand at his age. And then he was faced with that with less than 24 hours. Because I think I was wondering why he came in and stopped playing with the little boy, and that was why. And so we have to be watchful. We have to be mindful. So all of those are kind of interjections, but I'm gonna go ahead and let her, you know, talk about this as we bring this to a close. Again, about what was it like you. I'm gonna say this because I know this plays a little bit of a part in it. There was a boyfriend, but this boy was an exchange student, and I think you used the term. Um, you didn't care that he had a girlfriend back home. You would basically you just wanted to do whatever to be with him. You just wanted to be with him, period. And you thought about you all were gonna get married. I don't know if you thought you were gonna go off to Germany or if he was gonna move here, but you just had this dream that that was gonna happen. But obviously that had to come to an end because he was an exchange student. He had to go back. So you take this passion of I will do anything to be with you, and that's just kind of there. It's she lost out. In other words, she could not control the situation. She had these emotions attached to this guy, but the situation was out of her control. And so now we move into this boyfriend and just tell us about, again, in detail, how all of this played out from, I don't know what happened before the text message, but with him asking you to be his girlfriend, but you can start kind of wherever you need to start in there.
Yeah, so I think it was in 11th grade because I had moved to a new high school in 11th grade in high school. And so I was the new girl. And it's funny you mentioned the thing about the fighting in the beginning because I didn't even like put two and two together until now. But me and this other girl were friends, but she was like more like she was always ready to like fight somebody. And Ray and her had been kind of talking before I got to that school. So it was in between kind of me and her. And I was like, this girl, like, she's like wants to maybe fight me and stuff. And he was like, nah, like I'll protect you. It's so like I was the winner. And so it's funny you mentioned that because I put two and two together. But yeah, I was with Bray in 11th grade, and I pretty much when he asked me to be his girlfriend, I he was like, "So will you be my girlfriend and stuff?" And I was like, "No, no, no, no. You can't ask me through text message." I was like, "You need to show I like things to be public. Like I want everybody to know and stuff like that." And so he's like, "All right." So I don't know if it was the next day or something, but I'm sitting in the cafeteria and his like squad is like with him and he comes in the cafeteria like this huge teddy bear and he's like, Tia Rivera, will you be my girlfriend and stuff? And I was like, oh yes. And the cafeteria is like, oh, cheering and stuff. And I'm like, oh yes, this is great. And so time goes by and he's sending all these paragraphs and these promises we're gonna get married and we're gonna have children and what careers we're gonna have and what we're gonna name the children and stuff like that. And it was his birthday and I wanted to make him a cake and I wanted to get him these shoes that he wanted. And my mom didn't like him, so I wasn't gonna ask my mom to take me. So I asked one of our mutual friends, Nick, to take me to the mall to get the shoes and to take me to Wegmans, which was the grocery store in New York. And so I went with him and I got him his Harachis and I made this baseball cake with his baseball number on it. And then somebody sent him a picture of me with Nick at the mall. And he was like, "What is this? Why are you with another man at the mall?" Blah blah blah. And I was like, "No, no, no. I'm trying to do something for you. Like I'm doing this all for you. Like Nick, no, like talk to him." And so he wound up breaking up with me. I think he also sent he also saw a message, like a Snapchat from Oli, because I would like talk to Oli from time to time. And so he wound up breaking up with me over FaceTime, and I was so heartbroken. And he would sometimes text this girl Nalani. He would sometimes text like other girls, so that's why I was so like, why are you so mad about Nick when you text other girls? And so this girl Nalani, when she would text him, he'd be like, "Oh no, she's like nothing to worry about, whatever." And I was like, mm-hmm. So after we broke up, he wound up getting with Nalani, and I was like, "How are you gonna pick the fat white girl over me?" And I was so heartbroken. I was like, "Why are you with the girl you told me not to worry about?" And as time went on, pretty sure they broke up, and so that was my time to swoop in and try to get him back. And so I was like so desperate, and I remember I made him. Well, I'll start with this. It was prom season, and I was not about to go to prom alone. So I was like, I gotta get him to go with me. And so he agreed to it, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll go to prom with you." But I was like, you can't just go to prom. Like, you need to give me a promposal." And so he was like, "Oh my gosh, okay." And I would always get him. I always wanted him to match outfits with me. And pajama day, we need to do matching outfits. And here's your jersey, like Possible was talking about in messages. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is me." So we're always like matching and taking a bunch of pictures for Instagram and stuff. And so he goes to his art class in the morning, and he gets people to do a P, and you do an R, you do an O, you do an M, you do a question mark. And he pulls me from after class. And I come around the corner, and they're all holding their signs like with PROM question mark. And he's like, "Here you go. You good? We going? Okay, great." And I was like, "Yes, but make sure we get a picture for the gram." And so we wound up going to 11th grade prom together. Um, and it was just kind of like awkward. And then after prom, I think my mom took us. We went out to like a dinner, and then we went to like my mom's boyfriend's house, and we were like in the backyard in like a camper, and I showed him this video that I made him, and it was like this 15-minute video of like slideshows and pictures of all these promises that he made me. And I even had people from the school, like, I recorded them saying like, "My name's whatever, and you should get back with Tia because blah 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 blah." And it was like the whole school saying it. And I was all desperate. And he was like, maybe you do really care about me. Like, maybe we should get back together and stuff like that. So that's just some of the stuff.
So, do you see, or can you think, you just mentioned a couple of them, and I'll highlight that. Can you think of any other ways that you were kind of bulldozing and kind of running things in that relationship with him?
Um, just what else did I did some crazy stuff. Just like the matching outfits, constantly taking pictures. I always made sure we took a bunch of pictures together. I always made sure like he posted me and I posted him. Like make sure everybody knows. I think I was mad because he didn't come to like my track meets, but like I would come to some of his like baseball stuff. I think he went to like one of my track meets or something like that. Um, and I was mad about that. Um, yeah, just the matching pajama day. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes I would say, you need to send me more paragraphs or send me this or do that. You need to, I would ask him a million questions all the time. So what do you think about me? Or, so like, what would you do in this scenario? What would you do if we got married in the future and this and that? and I'd make him like, I think I remember I recorded him like reading some poem or something to me that I made him write to me, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for those examples. I, I'm just gonna kind of recap a few things if you all heard, because we talk about all the time how women, we can make the mistake of, and I think it was just said, women marry for the wrong reason. A lot of times it's just selfish reasons. I think you're cute. I think one of the things she talked about was having a cute prom picture. I have to go to prom with somebody cute because I need a picture that looks good. I can't have anybody who I deem to be unattractive on my prom picture. Not gonna happen. So it was about her. And I said this about the exchange student, that she felt like, oh, I would do anything to be with you, but she couldn't control that situation. She couldn't make him stay. She could not prolong that relationship. And so what happens is you have the disdain for male authority, the father who just pretty much let her get her way. The dynamic of her using emotional witchcraft with her parents to not be corrected and to be deemed a wonderful child all the time. Nothing's wrong with me. I'm just this great person, and you should be happy to be with me. And you see how that catapulted her into this mindset in this relationship that she had with this guy in high school. So what you saw play out was it wasn't good enough. So, and again, this was not about him and her just loving him the way, however we think we love in high school at that age. This was about, number one, I need to be in control. I need to make sure that nothing happens to damage this. I couldn't control the other guy going back, and I understand he had to go back, but now I'm left with all these feelings, and I need to make sure that now that I'm pouring myself into you, that I have control over this. How do I control it? I'm going to make you be with me really the way I want you to. So what was, he texted her and said, will you be my girlfriend? That wasn't enough. No, we have to let the whole school know. We have to put this on display. So ask me in front of people to be your girlfriend. Ask me in front of people to be your prom date. And we have to dress alike. What happened? Just like I said, when Apostle Bolden asked me the question, what do you think about this? I don't take over the conversation and go down this whole plan of what everything is. Just a simple thought. So what you heard her describe was the bossiness, the bulldozing. I have all these plans in my mind about what is going to solidify this relationship because I need to control this. I need to make sure we stay together. I need to make sure everybody knows about it. I need you to make me look good in public. You're cute. I'm cute. We need to be together, and we need to make it known to everybody. We need to be this power couple that everybody wants to be like, and all these different things. And men are not concerned about that, like the pictures. She's commanding him and demanding that you need to write me more love letters. That is the equivalent of being at the water fountain saying, you better be my boyfriend. All of that is the equivalent. And we could think that being bossy is in her mind, and as she shared, in our conversation, that's what I thought love was. That's what I thought love was. Well, what was the difference now, from our conversation, she shared with me, she wore very provocative clothing. She made herself look seductive. Listen to me. She made herself look seductive on the outside. She could pull, I'm sure it probably had plenty of guys that wanted to be her boyfriend. Probably, oh, let me get with this person. I think she's cute or whatever. I'm sure she did not have a problem turning a guy's head and getting his attention because she could fix herself up to look seductive. And there is a difference between being seductive and being feminine. So, what happens when it was all said and done? Now, there was a scenario with whatever took place at the mall, but do you know that if that was an excuse for him to break out? Oh, you were with my friend at the mall? You're out of here. I'm going to find me another girlfriend. That wasn't really why he left. That was just a good reason. Because at that age, nobody wants it to be their fault that the breakup happened. That was a good reason for him to exit. Let me get out of this Broadway production that she has pulled me into, where I have to get people to act out things, and we have to always take pictures, and we have to be on Instagram. And it's like, this is not what I signed. I guarantee you he was feeling like, okay, this is getting to be too much. So then where she finds herself, what was the difference between you and the other girl? What was she like? And what was so? And I'm gonna just take this for it, because when I was growing up, and guys had a girl who was maybe bigger than what her age group was, and they might have called her fat, or maybe said she wasn't that attractive. People would always describe her as being, well, she's nice. She's really, really nice and easy to get along with. You know why? Because she wasn't thinking too highly of herself. She wasn't trying. Okay, you don't have to spell out prom. You don't have to get nobody involved in this. If you want to take me, I will show up. Oh, you want me to be your girlfriend? It's just like the stripper, right? She was more humble. She was going to be more agreeable. She was going to be more supportive of him. She was going to make their relationship about him, not about her being in the spotlight. And so you have all these dynamics, all these things that fed into Tia being this way. Okay, my mama and daddy don't get along. My auntie tells my uncle what to do. They're still married. My dad still wanted to be married to my mom. All of these things play a part. So I don't like men, don't like male authority, really don't think very much of you. So what's left to do? Since I don't think very much of you and I don't think you can think for yourself, let me tell you what to do. I need to control this. And oftentimes, so that was some pretty blatant stuff. But a lot of times these things are playing out in marriage in maybe more subtle ways. I think Sister Jones talked about that some years ago, how the Lord addressed her. Every time her husband would say, oh, I'm thinking about doing this. Well, what about doing something different that I think? She would always suggest something to him right at the time that he was saying what his plan was. And she would back him down. Because now what you have is, okay, if the wife who's supposed to be following me and supporting me, and I'm supposed to be leading her, if she questions everything I say every time I have a plan, then it starts to make him question himself as a man. Well, what happened? Now he still knows that he's a man. He still knows that he's supposed to lead. So what's the next best thing? Let me go find somebody who's going to follow me. Let me go and find somebody who's going to allow me to lead them. That's just one example of how that plays out. And of course, we've had to deal with the question, well, does that mean I'm not supposed to talk? Can I just not say anything? Well, that's an exaggeration on the other end. No, the balance is you don't have to take over. Sometimes you don't have to say anything. If your husband is not asking you for your input, how about just being quiet? Because after all, as I said last week or week before last, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And just because you have an idea does not mean that's the way it's supposed to play out. I can tell you, especially from early on in our marriage, when I had all these grand ideas about how things were supposed to work, and my husband would shut it down. He's not trying to hear anything I had to say, or I wouldn't say anything. I might even have it in my mind, and the Lord would sure enough, make sure whatever he did, make it work and make it work great. So I could witness it. See, you don't have all the answers. See, your way might have worked, but his way did work. We know that because, and I had to learn that, just and I don't doubt without me thinking about it. I had some of that same mindset of, oh, you need me to tell you how to make this better. No, he really doesn't. And so that's something that, I want us to really, and I think the way she ended the that part of her story, there was so much that was shared. I just wanted to kind of highlight a few things. But the way she ended that is a good way for us to end this discussion here concerning what women are looking for, what wives are looking for from their husbands. So many wives, we've talked about it, I've said it, and I guess today just say it again because I know some wife, whether here or somewhere else, is thinking, what in the world do I have to do to get connected to my husband to feel like we are one? What am I supposed to do? How do I get this? See, in the dating scene, it was all about, just like what she described. I want it to look like you're worshiping me. I need you to make me look good. I need you to make me feel good. I need you to do these things that make me feel like I'm somebody special to you. So I'm going to record you reading a poem to me, and I'm going to save all these text messages where you send me these paragraphs about how wonderful I am and how much I've added to your life. Everything is about the wife in that scenario, or the woman in that scenario, or the wife who has that mindset. Where you're trying to bulldoze your husband into loving you. Well, if you just do it this way, if you will call me every hour on the hour, then I know you love me. If you will buy me flowers, then I know you love me. If you will do this and do all these things, then I know that you love me. But as I said, if you show up as a wife, that husband is going to show up. If you show up as a lady, that man is going to show up. If you show up in a feminine manner, it pulls out his masculinity. The one thing that we have to understand, if we don't understand anything else, if Tia, in her situation with the high school boyfriend, if she had just made it about him and just sincerely and genuinely just been into him, a lot of the things that she was demanding from him would have just come naturally towards her. And that's what we're missing a lot of times. We have these expectations about what it's going to take to make us feel like we're loved, but we're missing it and we're messing it up. Because all I have to do, is love my husband. If I'm submitted to him, I respect him, I honor him, I admire him, I support him, I'm a help to him. What I get in return is so much more than I ever got when I was dating a man. A man's sincere love for his wife is automatically invoked by her reverence, her respect, her admiration, her submission, and her support. And it will feel greater than any false worship that you've ever received from somebody who wasn't willing to marry you. It is a feeling that cannot necessarily be described, it can only be experienced. The false worship is temporary. The false worship is it's a part of an exchange system. So even though you might get the false worship, you still have to give up something that leaves you feeling empty. When you, in marriage, love your husband, you submit, you surrender, you respect, you support, you help. When you are who God called you to be, what is returned to you causes fulfillment. It does not cause you to feel void and empty. That's what a lot of women are looking for. The true, sincere, genuine love is only going to come when you yourself provide something true, genuine, and sincere. And then you get in return. But it's automatic. You don't have to push for it. You don't have to ask for it. You don't have to demand it. You don't have to cry for it. You don't have to shake your fist at God about it. You don't have to do any of that. The only thing you have to do is be who God called you to be. And when you will do that from a sincere place, when you are genuine about it, then you will experience what she was trying to make that boyfriend do. It will be automatic. You will get that, and you will be able to relish in the love and the security of your husband from there. And I think we're going to just go ahead and close it there. I think we've kind of covered everything that we need to cover concerning it, and the bottom line is how we express love is important. And we need to make sure that we're doing it the way that in a way that's more natural to who God made us and who he designed us to be. It will flow naturally if we will be who we were designed to be. And it will flow back to us naturally when we are doing that. And I'm just going to say this one last thing concerning service. It is important that we take on a mindset of servitude, that we live life outside of ourselves, that we see the importance of our purpose and our presence in this earth, touching somebody else's life. Whatever my purpose is for being here, somebody else should be benefiting from it, not just me. So again, I think every day, every week, surely every month, we have an opportunity to serve somebody. And so if we don't have a mind to think about other people or think about ways that we can be helpful, let's just change that today. Let's start to think about others, because it first starts with an attitude. We have to think enough of people to think that they deserve our time, our talents, our money, whatever it is whatever resources we have to offer. It can't be an inconvenience to us, and it can't be from a place of murmuring and complaining in our hearts. It has to be that, you know what, I have something. And let me tell you, whatever we have in this earth that could be a resource to somebody else, just remember this. It's temporary, and it's not going into eternity. You may as well give it away. You're not taking it into eternity with you. Even if it's your time, whatever it is. And that means don't do it grudgingly. What are you going to do? I hold on to $1 today, and then I die tomorrow. Somebody's still going to get that dollar. So let's just think about taking full advantage of the time that we have in this earth to serve other people. But ultimately, and I will say this, let's do it with a good attitude. Let's not do it grudgingly. Okay, let us go ahead and bow our heads and pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you, Lord God, for leading and guiding us. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for this discussion. And I pray, Heavenly Father, that we will take everything from it that we need to take from it, and that you will show us how to live it out. Show us, Lord God, how to recognize the things in our life and our everyday lives that will hinder us from growing closer to our spouses, or will hinder us from even preparing as a wife. We pray and ask you, Heavenly Father, that you will be with us throughout the rest of this day, Lord God, and that you will protect us as we leave this place. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.